Hello and welcome to the Offside Line pod with David Barnes and me, Pete Burns. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode and tell your friends, family, teammates, clubmates and the people you sit next to in the stand all about us. And if you'd like to leave a positive review, it would really help us with the old algorithm as it helps other people find us. Thanks for listening, and here's today's show.
It's the Offside Line.
This is not soccer. Is that clear?
Utmost danger. Danger could be there. It's a try. A magnificent try for the 21-year-old.
Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant.
Hello and welcome to the Offside Line pod, the first for Scottish Rugby, and our 50th episode. Barney and I are delighted to be joined by Stuart Bathgate for this one. Now, you two were up in St Andrews with the rest of the press corps yesterday for the announcement of the Women's World Cup squad. Tell us about the day.
It was a long day. The whole squad were there as far as I can remember. I guess the interesting point of it, from a journalist's point of view, wasn't so much as who's in the squad, but who was left out.
Mm-hmm. That's always the same with all World Cup squads, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And also, he'd announced a 38. He told us last week that Holly Cunningham couldn't make it because of injury. So he was down to 37. So it's really which five players will you leave out until you to end up with the official 32. So the major doubt was whether Lana Skeldon was going to be declared fit or not after being injured against Ireland. And then the one unexpected thing was Lucia Scott being ruled out with a broken hand, which none of us noticed against Ireland, but unfortunately for her, she's out. So that was it. That was the main news of the day, who was out, who was in. And then the main concern, I reckon, over the next couple of weeks is Lana Skeldon, while in the squad, is still not sure if she'll be fit to play against Wales. And Ellis Martin was there on crutches, and while she's in the squad too, it remains to be seen if she'll get over her precise problem in time. So it's your two first choice hookers are both doubts, and that's not great, is it?
No, I was looking at the social media stuff that Scottish Rugby put up, and Lana Skeldon walking very, very gingerly across the sand to do the photos did not look like she was in a good place with that injury.
I think in a way, it's I don't know if you remember the Women's Euros, but Aitana Bonmati, who's been the best player in the world in the last couple of years in women's football, had viral meningitis, which is like crazy. She's still in the squad, but they said she's staying in the squad, she'll be fine. Now, some players recover really quickly, and in her case, she missed the first two games, came back for the third, and helped Spain reach the final. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe it's unfair comparing Lana to someone of that stature, but Lana is a vital player for Scotland, so hopefully she'll be able to recover pretty rapidly. As to her bluntly, are you saying you're definitely in against Wales, definitely out, or what? And she had to admit it's somewhere in between. She said, we're just doing it day by day at the minute. And I guess that's the same with every injury until you get back on the pitch, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brian did say when he did the top table stuff, didn't he, Stuart, that he thought she would be fit. But I mean, that's probably the coach's prerogative to kind of, sound confident.
Yeah, well, I mean, Lana didn't say, Brian, you're wrong in so many words, obviously. But I think when you get to chat to Lana for 5 minutes about her injury, as opposed to maybe a little bit of a question to Brian, you get more nuance there. And in the sense that I guess part of the job is to be habitualistic. And I do think that when he said all the players are fit and raring to go, or words to that effect, they're maybe raring to go, but I'd hesitate to say they were all fit. I mean, they're not.
Yeah. So we're talking the first game, the Wales game, just in case our listeners aren't, fully got their World Cup schedule in front of them. So the first game, the Wales game, is on the 23rd of August. So we're talking 15 days, just over 2 weeks' time. So and it is rushed because, as you say, the first, the top two hookers really going on recent selections are both hobbling around at the moment. I mean, it's hard to say, Stuart, but do you think that's more to do with Brian's confidence and the medical team's confidence that they'll be back in time, or is it, we know there's not a huge depth in Scottish women's rugby, and we're better gambling with these two kind of proven options than whatever's next off the taxi rank?
Well, I think a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, he went out of his way to praise the medical team. Now, it's maybe more of a story if the coach refuses to praise the medical team. But he does seem to have a lot of faith in him. Faith is the wrong word because it's science, not faith, isn't it? But then on the other hand, if there were 5, 6, 7 really competitive hookers going for those 2-3 places in the squad, he might well have said to Lana or Ellis, it's not worth it. Or he might have thought, we can't have 2 hookers who are in the same position. Having said that, I mean, Lana starts, Ellis comes on. That's been the pattern for the majority of Scotland's matches for maybe the last 3 years. And they are really established as the 1 and 2. And the obvious contingency plan is Ayla Ronald, who was left out of the squad yesterday, can come back in if either Lana Skeldon or Ellis Martin don't make it. But I mean, he's obviously hoping that both will be able to start. Sorry, both will be able to be in the 23 against Wales.
So what does the next couple of weeks look like for them in the build-up to the tournament?
They go down to Manchester next week. There's no more media access for until a week on Sunday. So they've got a bit of time away from the spotlight to fine-tune whatever they want to fine-tune. The real countdown to the World Cup for them, I guess, starts a week on Sunday when they have their welcoming ceremony somewhere in Manchester, which, if previous events are anything to go by, will be in some place where, I know, the town hall, for example, where dignitaries can turn up and greet the coach and the squad. And it's very much, here we are in Manchester, we're happy to be here, and the countdown starts. Apart from that, I mean, I think they should have everything in place, shouldn't they, really? It's they will try a couple of different moves that they didn't try in their 2 friendlies against Italy and Ireland, but on the whole, it's a pretty settled squad with a settled game plan.
And I should intervene here to say, there's no media activity for the next couple of weeks, but Stuart was a true professional, unlike myself who took the huff yesterday, but Stuart was a true professional collecting, there's the whole squad were there, so there's lots of interviews and content ready to come up on the Offside Line as we build up to the World Cup, or plenty enough content, so we will be talking about it, but we don't get to see them again. Is that right? We don't get to see them again until that opening ceremony event on the Thursday before. Is that right, Stuart?
Yeah. I'm not sure when you plan to publish this pod, but we've got an Ellis Martin interview tonight, 6:00, in which he will give a lot more detail about the nature of her injury.
Brilliant. And for those who don't know what the schedule is for the fixtures, can you talk us through how the pool stages are going to work and who they're playing?
They play against Wales first off, as David said, a fortnight on Saturday in Salford. They stay in Salford for the next week, and they play against Fiji on, that'll be the 30th, and then they go to Exeter and they play against Canada in the last pool game at Sandy Park on, I think that'll be the 6th of September. So 3 successive Saturdays, the first 2 at Salford Community Stadium to the west of Manchester, and the third at Sandy Park, which is a venue that a lot of Scottish rugby fans will know well from Europe. And Salford's an interesting one. It's virtually a home game for Wales, I would suggest. I'm sure lots of Mancunians wouldn't want to be called Welsh, but it's pretty close to Wales. Exeter, again, it's obviously closer to Wales, but I'm not sure if Exeter would suit either Scotland or Wales or Canada or anyone really. I don't think Canada care, but ideally Scotland would play all 3 games in Sunderland, which is the northerly-most venue in England, but that's not going to happen, so they can just get on with it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Exeter's closer to Scotland than Canada. I'll go with that one.
Yes, we're watching a home game at Exeter, but I think really, obviously the coaches are doing nothing, but we'd expect Scotland to beat Fiji with a bit to spare. Canada ranked 2nd in the world, so with the best will in the world, we'd expect Canada to win that one. And with the top 2 teams going through from the pool, the opener against Wales therefore becomes a very early decider potentially. And at the moment, it looks 50-50. The games against Wales have been pretty close, except for one 2 years ago, in which the then Wales coach fielded a second string because it was a warm-up for WXV. I think Scotland won by something like 24 points that night. But normally, 3 points, 4 points either way. Availability of Lana Skeldon or not could be decisive.
Yeah, and it's does it generally go? It generally goes. Oh no, I was going to say it goes home advantage, but Scotland beat Wales down there in the Six Nations, didn't they? Is that right?
They won by, was it 3 points?
Oh no,
2
that was
points.
Yeah.
Scotland won by 2 points in 24 when Claky George missed a late conversion to equalise. 22-20. Wales have won up here. Wales won up here in 23. Scotland won against Wales here by 3 points. The difference between the Six Nations and now is Wales were playing their first game under Sean Lynn, their new coach. He'd had 2 training sessions. They were missing 3 key forwards. They still only lost by 3 points. Now, Scotland were missing players as well, and every team misses players for every match. But I think if you look at how Wales played in Australia, for example, they won the first test in Australia. They lost in the second. But I think a few months ago, no one would have expected Wales to come close to beating Australia, even once. So it looks to me like they've improved a lot now that Sean Lynn has had time to get his act together and put his own stamp on the side, really.
And can I quickly ask you a couple of questions, Stuart, about your take on the Scotland's build-up? 2 matches. Do we read too much into, how much do you read into games? They were away from home, which I think is probably quite disappointing from a market, if nothing else, a marketing point of view, because, I think there's, a build-up to World Cup, there should be a bit of buzz around it. So that's a bit of a shame. What do we read into their performances? And without dwelling too much on it, Rachel Malcolm, the Scotland captain, had a kind of made her point very succinctly. I thought but pointedly, made her point pointedly about a few issues in the background in terms of Brian Easton moving on at the end of the World Cup and the contract uncertainty. I got the impression yesterday, and you deal with the Scotland women's team a lot, that they're generally quite a positive bunch as a group. I mean, how do you feel they are? What's your instinct about how their preparation's gone?
The friendlies, first of all, I mean, you don't want to lose both your warm-up games. They lost in Italy. They fell just short after a good second-half performance. They went 14-0 up against Ireland and still lost. And that was an Ireland team playing their first game without Aoife Wafer and a few others. And then, Scotland without Jade Conkle, Sarah Bonner, and so on. So there's never just one team who suffered from injuries. My concern would be that, as in the Six Nations, Scotland played both those games in fits and starts. I know it's a cliche saying we're looking for an 80-minute performance, but it's a cliche for a good reason. If you play well for 80, you're going to win the game. If you have a poor patch in every match, you're susceptible to shipping a lot of points and having too much to do. They had too much to do against Italy, lost by 5 points. A little bit different against Ireland, that Ireland finished more strongly. Not ideal preparation, but to be honest, not too disturbing, as long as they learn what went wrong in those 2 games and rectify those faults against Wales. Contracts issue and Brian, I think Rachel said things had been upsetting, and what was the other phrase she used?
Disruptive.
Upsetting and disruptive, yeah. And obviously they've seemed to have concluded contract negotiations. I think I said to her the phrase, "Have you concluded them to your satisfaction?" And that's, she wouldn't want to say to our, certainly not to our total satisfaction.
No.
But they seem done enough now to put that issue to bed before the World Cup. And you're right, they are a pretty close-knit squad. Obviously, the people at Scottish Rugby with whom they've been negotiating over contracts and conditions aren't part of the squad, so they can park them, as it were, just concentrating on the day job, concentrate on doing their best for each other as a team.
Yeah, I get the impression you get to this, just the vibe coming off them yesterday. You get this close to the tournament, it's a bit easier to kind of shelve all these other considerations. You maybe have to come back to it after the World Cup, but they know how big an opportunity this is for them. For a lot of them, it'll be the only World Cup they ever play in. So I think, that was my kind of gut feeling about it. I suspect they're still not very happy about some of the stuff that's gone on, but that's for another day at the moment. I think it was certainly the way I would. The vibe that was coming off me. I did think it was interesting, that question you asked, Rachel. She very she said the discussions have been concluded. She didn't really say to her satisfaction, did she? She kind of cleverly avoided saying that, so that was interesting.
I think you're right that they should be able to park things quite successfully. The one worry going into the World Cup, into any tournament, is if the squad have an issue with the coach. Because then you see the coach every day, he's telling you to do things at training you think is wrong, misguided, whatever. And then that's when you see whole teams walking out, usually it's men's football teams actually, but I say for it, but it happens in sport. But if your issue is with people back home in an office somewhere, well, guess what? You're on a pitch, not in an office. Hopefully they're not there. I don't know if they'd want to see certain senior SIU figures standing at the touchline supposed to cheer them on, but if they are, they can ignore them. So they should be able to blank it out and get on with playing rugby, I hope.
Yeah, and on that point, you're saying, whether they have an issue. I mean, who knows what the dynamics inside the squad are, but I did think it was quite telling yesterday. I don't think you were there, Stuart. You were doing the match, you were doing the kind of quick news piece inside it was at St Andrew's Old Course Hotel. So Stuart was inside the press area doing the quick news story, and myself and Morna Scott, a wee shout out to Morna Scott, who is about to start her journalism course at Napier University, came along with me to kind of just have a behind the scenes look at how I think she might try and go through clearing and do law after watching the shambles, which was the Scottish Rugby Press Corps. But anyway, Morna and I walked out to watch to the West Sands and watched. They did you'll seen the photos. They're kind of on, and it was just quite interesting because they announced each of the players and they all came out and they all clapped each other as they came out. And then at the end when Brian came out, they were kind of whooping and cheering. And Brian gets a bit, there's been, Brian's dealt with a bit of kind of backlash, a bit of stick over certain things in the past, and I think that's part of the tension of the coach. But I thought it was just quite telling that they made a big noise when Brian came out as their coach, and whether all of them are 100% Team Brian. I think they wanted to make the point that Brian's their guy. certainly through to the end of the World Cup. And I just thought it was quite a telling moment from my perspective.
I think the senior players are Team Brian, as far as I can see. We shouldn't forget that two pretty senior players, Christine Belial and Louise McMillan, have been left out of the squad, not entirely due to form, you could suggest. And I reckon that those two, for a start, aren't Team Brian. They were really good for well. I remember time after time we'd ask younger players in the squad, when your heads are down, when you've lost 6, 7, 8 games on the trot, which of your teammates do you look to lift your spirits? And they all said CB and Lou, Christine Belial and Louise McMillan. So for whatever reason, those two senior players have not seen eye to eye with Brian. He insists on form, but I would suggest that their experience is such that even if they were off form, you work with them to rectify their form as opposed to saying, right, that's the end of them. The phrase Louise McMillan used on social media after being dropped or being omitted from the squad was, I can't see myself playing for Scotland again under this coaching team. So I guess she'd be hopeful to come back once Brian leaves after the World Cup and they appoint someone new. And on that note, obviously with Brian moving on and with several of the players reaching veteran status, I know you probably, a lot of players don't like the word veteran, but once you're in your 30s and you've been playing Test rugby for 10, 12 years, you are a veteran. At least some of them, especially those with jobs elsewhere, might decide to retire as well. Rachel Malcolm is 34. So what I'm saying is, post-World Cup is a good time to reassess. It's a new cycle. And I think there's a feeling that not only is this the last hurrah for Brian, but for the team as it stands, it will probably look pretty different in a year's time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very conscious that we promised this would be a quick pod. We should say in the background, Stuart and I just announced to him last night that we were doing this pod at 9 o'clock, and Pete, being a gentleman that he is, has taken it on board. So I don't want to keep on asking you questions, Stuart, but it was just when you're talking about senior players, I just wanted to quickly touch on Jade Conkle and Sarah Bonner, who haven't played recently because of injury, and they're both in the squad. Both big personalities, both very experienced players, very good players. I mean, presumably that's a big boost in terms of that all-important game against Wales, having a couple of characters like that back involved. And is there anyone else that we should really mention? Is it coming in that kind of category?
Well, Fran McGee as well hasn't played in either of the two games, and Brian always lumped in those three as players who will not play but will definitely be ready to play against Wales. Spoke to Sarah and Fran yesterday, not to Jade, but both of them are pretty confident that they'll be ready. I think at least a couple of them came into the category of could have played if necessary last week. And the good thing, or the bad thing from Sarah's point of view, is that she's been out for long spells with injury before. She knows how her recovery pattern goes. She knows that she'll be ready to come back and play to a certain level. Same with Jade. Fran's a lot younger, less experienced, but if anything, she'll probably recover more quickly. The interesting thing with Jade, though, is that she was once the first name on the team sheet, and now you've got such strength in the Scottish back row. Rachel Malcolm, Rachel McLachlan, Alex Stewart, Evie Gallagher, that I'd imagine Jade will get into the 23, but she's probably not going to be in the starting lineup. Sarah Bonner and Emma Wassell have been the first choice lock partnership when fit for a number of years, so I'd expect to see Sarah start as well.
Excellent. I think we've more or less covered things, have we? Have you got anything?
No, that was brilliant, guys. Thank you so much. All I was going to say is that we're going to have a break from the pod for a couple of weeks while we build up to the tournament. But you're not having a break, obviously, from the Offside Line, Barney. You've got lots of articles to put up. And what else is exciting that's going on behind the scenes with the website?
Well, we've started kind of flagging up a bit. There's a few those who do read the Offside Line as well, listening to the pod, will have spotted a few adverts online. We're having a rebuild. The old site was built back in 2016. It was a long-winded story about that, but basically I came up with this idea that I wanted to run a website writing about club rugby really at that time, and it was set up over the weekend by a friend of my son's parent, dad. And we've kind of built on it since then, but it's basically bursting at the seams now. We've kind of outgrown it. Well, we've absolutely outgrown it. So we are investing, and we're putting a lot of effort and time and thought into building this new site, which is going to be launching before the start of the season, hopefully, touch wood. And we're pretty excited about it. We've seen bits. The kind of web designers have shown us bits and pieces. It looks really good. It's going to be slicker. There's a lot of things in the background that maybe the readers don't notice, but makes life harder for us in terms of running it. So the site's going to be, we just think it's going to be more. It's easier to navigate, quicker, nicer to look at. So it's quite an exciting time. But it's quite a lot of hard work. You would think it'd be dead easy, but I kind of naively thought I'll just get these guys in. We'll just hire. It's actually one of the John McConville, who's ran the site for years, and one of his work people he works with are doing it. And I thought it'd be dead easy, but quite rightly, they're kind of demanding a lot of us because they need to make it work for us. So it's quite exciting. New site launching before the new year. And thanks for teeing me up for that,
Not
Burnsy.
at all, not at all. I'm excited to see it. I saw some
new season.
I saw some screen grabs of how it's going to look, and it looks very, very smart. So I'm excited to see it go live eventually.
Yeah, eventually. We're getting there, but it's making good progress. Yeah.
Good.
Poor Elaine Hamilton, who you guys all know, who kind of helps with the commercial. Well, not helps, runs the commercial side. Shall be trouble say helps. She's not a patient lady, so I think she's finding it far more stressful than I am. She's more of a perfectionist than I am. I'm kind of like, let's get on with it. But no, it's looking good. It is looking good, and we're quite excited about it. But it's quite a lot of work and quite a lot of anxiety because it's a big change for us. But it's the right thing to do, and it'll make next season all the more fun and it'll be a lot easier for you, Stuart, when you're posting stories on the website. So good news for you as well.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I don't want to go on about this too much, but Stuart did point out to me, and I was going to raise it privately with Elaine, but I'll do it publicly now. Stuart's nose was slightly out of joint because the advert said sharper stories, and I think it meant, like the site was going to look better, but I think Stuart took it personally and thought that we were suggesting his stories are a bit long-winded and fuzzy. That is not the case, Stuart. I can absolutely guarantee you that's not the case.
I can keep going with my 200-word first paragraph then.
Yeah. So don't fear, the site will look a lot better, but Stuart's long-winded articles will still be exactly as they were before.
Good news for all concerned.
They're not long-winded at all, Stuart. Your articles are very succinct. It's me that goes off on tangents.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. That was tremendous, and we will be back in your ears in a couple of weeks, listeners. And until then, stay on the Offside Line for all your updated news and articles from all the team. Thanks, guys. Speak to you soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Stuart.
Bye.
It's the offside line.
This is not soccer. Is that clear?
Utmost danger. Danger could be there. Fuck, it's a try. A magnificent try for the 21-year-old.
Brilliant.